Welcome back. This is Michael Williams, founder of Start Speaking Training Center. I see that you made it. We're going to be looking at the first key to how to stop stuttering. The first key to how to stop stuttering. So let's jump right in. The first key is to think differently about your ability to speak well. Think differently about your ability to speak well. What do I mean by that? Learning to speak well is a skill, and it's a learnable skill. So speaking well, right, speaking fluently, smoothly, and confidently is a skill that you can learn, just like any other skill. If you play sports, in fact, I have a gentleman who I've talked to who he plays baseball, and so he's obviously had to learn how to do different things in playing baseball, how to throw it, catch, hit, how to do all kinds of different stuff. And those were all skills that he learned. Now maybe he had natural ability, but he also had to learn skills. Think about learning a new computer program, a new piece of software. Those are skills. Maybe you have an ability to learn that kind of technical material or to learn how to do that, but you also had certain very specific skills that you had to learn. Think about the fact that in walking and riding a bike and driving a car and doing and typing and doing anything, those are things that maybe you didn't know how to do before, but through practice and rehearsal you learned how to do them, right? So they were skills that you learned. We're going to get into that into one of the other keys just a little deeper, but I want you to think about your ability to speak differently. And so what's the differently? What's the difference? The difference is that think about it as a learnable skill. Now, why is that important? It's important because it gives you hope and confidence. Some people think, oh, this is just so monumental. It's something I've had for so long. There's no way I can overcome this. Do I need to be hypnotized? Do I need to do all of this stuff in order to not stutter? Well, the fact is, you can learn to speak well. Right, so it's not about learning not to stutter, it's about learning to speak well. Do you see the distinction? We're really not focused so much. I know the title is just how to stop stuttering, but that's because that's what people actually search for, right? But the focus is, now listen, the focus is not so much on how to stop stuttering as it is on how to start speaking more smoothly and fluently and confident, how to start speaking well, how to become an expert. That's the focus. So you can learn how to speak well. When you learn how to speak well, what's going to happen is you'll be overriding the stuttering. The stuttering begins to go away. Once again, we will look at that in a future session. And we'll say some of the very same things that we say, but we'll go a little bit deeper in one of the other sessions. In fact, in the next session. The second part to you thinking differently about your ability to speak is you want to transition into not owning the stutter. Now, I've said this before. If you've seen some of my other videos, and other people have said this as well, you don't want to own it and claim it as a part of you. Some people say, I am a stutterer, right? Or my stuttering. See, those are all words or phrases of ownership. This is mine. This belongs to me. This is who I am. That's not true. It may be what you do currently, but it's not who you are. See, you are not a stutterer, right? Stuttering is not yours. It's something that maybe you currently do, but you are going to slowly overcome it. It's slowly going to become something that's in your past. So therefore, the way you think about yourself and your speech and the words that you use are critical to you becoming an excellent speaker. So here are some things that you can begin to think and say differently. One is there are going to be times when you may need to share with someone. Sometimes I stutter. So if you call on me to read or if I pause a little bit, it's because sometimes I stutter, right? Instead of saying I'm a stutterer, you might say sometimes I stutter. And even that, you're going to slowly stop saying that. You're going to get to a place where you're not going to need to say that. But initially, to kind of diffuse or reduce or minimize the pressure of, oh, okay, I got to hide this, or just come out saying, I'm a stutterer, you can say, sometimes I stutter. And I've used that plenty of times. For the first few years, I would say to people in class when I was doing my master's degree, sometimes I stutter. So if I need to pass or if I pause a little bit, that's the reason why. Right? Makes sense, right? So you're changing the words to sometimes. And if you don't have to say it, don't even say that. The next thing, you don't want to say, my stuttering. Right? It's not yours. It's something that you may do. So you don't want to own it at all. You just want to think of it as, this is something that I have done in the past and that I'm overcoming now. In fact, I'm becoming an excellent speaker. Right? In the program, we talk about the 3P formula. That is how you can actually begin to affirm and say, not I'm overcoming stutter, I don't stutter anymore. I'm an excellent speaker. I'm a great speaker. So rather than saying I'm a stutterer or my stuttering, I'm an excellent speaker. I'm a great speaker. Someone says, well, I'm not a great speaker. I do stutter. Well, maybe right now you do, but in order to move to a place where you don't, you actually have to start thinking and seeing yourself that way. Once you start to think that way, once you start to say it, it actually becomes a reality. This isn't just necessarily just mind over matter and law of attraction and stuff like that, which is, those are laws, those are principles, but it's a fact that once you begin to see yourself that way and you begin to say that and you start to hear yourself and you start to believe it, then you actually, and it may be gradually, maybe slowly, but you actually start to speak better. I can't tell you how many people I've had who, just from using that 3P formula, have seen themselves start to speak well. So, what was the first key? The first key is, think of your ability to speak well differently. Think of your ability to speak well differently. How? Number one, don't take ownership of the stuttering. That is, don't say it's mine. Don't say I stutter, right? Think of it differently. Think of it as something that's in the past. Think of it as something that you do and not who you are. So if you have to say something about stuttering, you might say, sometimes I stutter, right? You don't say I am a stutterer, you say my stutter. The second part to that, and there's no real order to these, but the second part to thinking differently is understanding that you do have the ability, that is, you can learn to speak well. It's a learnable skill, right? So if it's a learnable skill, then you just have to learn how to do it and practice it, right? Learn how to do it and practice. A learnable skill. Well, thank you very much for joining me in this first key. I look forward to seeing you in the second key.